All right. Oh, where am I hearing that from? Hello? Hello? Good. Twitch is dead. That's dead. Good. All right. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Klingons, Tholians. Boom.
The time of old kings is done. The kings of old who came from the stars to Kronos saw our race as a robust crop to be harvested. Their power and technology set them as gods to those early Klingons that roamed the plains of a once lush world, enslaving our ancestors as labor to harvest the land and warriors to fight their wars. They used their advanced sciences to change the very building blocks of what it is to be a Klingon. Those who stayed on the homeworld were bred as strong and subordinate manual labor. As their machines of industry stripped our planet of its natural wealth, the Klingons they took to the stars were engineered to serve as crew on their mighty warships. A schism formed and two genetic lines were created, both Klingon, but one stronger and more durable, the other smarter and more capable in combat. Over more than 500 years, Klingons spread across the galaxy as crew in the ships of these taskmasters from the stars. Planets were colonized as industrial way stations to service a never-ending war fought by these former gods against an unknown adversary. In the decades before the Great Uprising, something changed. Those who had once seemed like gods transformed into fearful kings, clutching to power in fear. Their interstellar wars wrought casualties. Worlds were burnt to ash, and the confidence with which they once ruled metamorphosized into a timid shadow of a once great glory. Kales, a common laborer, rose from the masses on Kronos to lead a rebellion against these old kings. The robust warriors captured the centers of industry, while Klingons on board ships in orbit mutinied and took control of the picket fleet that guarded the homeworld. The old kings cowered in their orbital stations, isolated from the massive fleets and resources of centuries past. Over the next several years, automated base stations and orbital manufacturing facilities were captured and retooled. Nearly a decade after the liberation of Kronos, the last base station was captured, only to find the desiccated remains of the entities we now refer to as the Old Kings. With the Old Kings now dead, Kales worked to bring Klingons together, dividing the survivors of the liberation into tribal houses that centralized specialist knowledge and skills. Tribal bonds were formed quickly with those Klingons who served in the spacefaring ships of old, now divided and tasked with the burden of understanding the technology, science, and knowledge of the Old Kings. These houses worked diligently to build the capacity for Klingons to defend themselves from enemies old or new. The warriors from Kronos, relying on their knowledge of industry, rebuilt the engines destroyed in the war and began the effort of restoring Kronos to the planet of bounty it had once been. Waning in age, Kales gathered his most loyal advisors and formed a governing council for Kronos. With representatives from all houses, these leaders would serve as the future government of the Klingon people. Taking the last battleship from the picket fleet, Kales and a valiant few took to the stars to seek out other Klingon worlds left isolated in the wake of the Old Kings. He pledged to return at a time of great need, but trusted that his brothers and sisters in arms would lead the Klingon species to honor and glory. This is the story of those Klingons of Kronos, reaching out beyond Kronos Firma to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and civilizations, to submit, conquer, and exploit those too weak to protect themselves. Long live the Klingon Empire.
Well, there. Looky here. Welcome, everybody. This is the very first live stream that I'm getting underway here for our Lost Stars campaign. If you're following right now or catching this on the replay, thank you very much. Right now we're on Facebook, Twitch, or I should say I'm on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, of course. If you're looking to follow on with the campaign, as you saw just at the very end there, that's the first video put up, just as a little bit of a prologue. And I do apologize for my terrible writing in that little history story there. But nonetheless, yes, on YouTube, on Twitch, and of course on Facebook. If you want to catch us on the platform that works best for you, but either way, you can go support us on Patreon as well. If you go to the YouTube channel Lost Stars, then you'll be able to find the Patreon information. I can also pop it in the chat later today. So what is this thing that we're playing here? What's going on? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, at the very beginning of that video, for example, it talked about this being a Starfleet universe campaign. So what, long story short, is that this is a war game, a 4X kind of game: explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. And we're doing it using a game called Federation and Empire. Now, Federation and Empire was a game that was originally created by, I believe, FASA in the 80s, and now it's owned by a company called the Amarillo Design Bureau. And what it does is it's set in what they call the Starfleet universe. And that is, if you want to think of it from the television series, that is like thinking of Star Trek, the original series, so TOS, with Kirk and Spock and so on, and the animated series, which is the animated series that came out in the 70s based on the same series, or based on that TOS era. And that is the nuts and bolts of it. For various reasons about, intellectual property and so on, when they made the movies and then TNG and then all the other series that followed, that is separate as far as IP than what we're talking about in this game. So this game is essentially set in the the beginnings of the TOS era, and then goes forward. And in the tabletop version of this game, which is this giant map that you'll lay out, it is a what they call a general war campaign, and so it's basically set in Kirk's time, and you use Kirk era modern ships, and then it kind of would go to what would be the equivalent of TNG. In the game that we are playing, we are starting in what they call the early years. So if you want to think of, again, thinking of the television series, right? If you want to think of Enterprise being the first warp-capable ships that went out into space, that's what they refer to as there's W, or early era, W era, Y, M, and GW. And the W is the very first golden age ships that were able to, if you want to think of it from the television series, hit Warp 5, for example. Those are the ships that, Archer's Enterprise and so on. Those are the kinds of ships that they sent out. And then in the Y era, so there's like the W, then Y, and Y would be something like the ships that came out just before the Constitution class or the classic Enterprise that you might be familiar with. And then the M era is when the Enterprise comes out. You can also think of it, if any of you have seen Prelude to Axanar and that sort of series that's been created, the Prelude to Axanar is very much set in the Y to M era. The M that comes out is the introduction of that kind of next generation of ship, and that would be the Constitution class and all that. So that is the M era is that kind of benchmark or that milestone in the timeline. And and what we're talking about here in this game is we're starting off at the very beginnings of W and then working our way forward, if that makes any sense. So, but at the root of it, this is like a 4X, again, expand, explore, exploit. So explore the space, exploit the resources, expand your borders, and exterminate your enemies. It's a war game, and we have quite the sort of setup with regards to how this works. Now let me start off by giving you, what should I start off with here? I will, let's give you, I'm trying to do this all live in real time, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm fumbling a little bit with regards to getting you the right screen, so to speak. So I want to give you my Excel sheet. All right, hold on. I'm going to give you this screen here. And I'm going to put in the... Again, doing it all in real time. Too funny. There we go. All right, let's see if this works. So you're gonna lose my video here for a sec. Actually, what if I did this? No. Apologize, everybody. I am trying to fuddle with this in real time. Let me try and do this a different way. Okay. Boom. All right. And then on top of that, I'm just going to add in, let's enter the voiceover. Okay, we'll do it this way. Boom. And let's open turn number 1. Okay. All right. So this might get a little dry for about 2 seconds while I explain to you what's going on, and then I'm going to show you the map and then show you what we're up to. So here we go. Yeah, good. You can still hear me. Okay. So what you're looking at here is the spreadsheet that we use to be able to manage the game. As you can see here, the turns are on the top, and there are basically two turns per year, if you want to think of it that way. There's a spring season and a fall season. So every 2 years, a year passes, and away you go. Now at the very top here, you can see that there is the resources, and I'll get into that in a second, but basically this is your income. This is the amount of money that you're making per turn, and in this case, I get 14. The way our game is being run, and you know, full disclosure, what we are running in this particular campaign is a bit of a homebrew version of F&D. We've made some adjustments to the game, and we have some specialty rules that I can show you of how we play with it a little bit differently. So there's 14, in this case, 14 income that you make, but then when you divide that in half, depending on your status, whether you're at war, at peace, or what we refer to as limited war. So let me show you that right here. So you can see here, when you're at peace, you get basically half of the money that you can potentially make. So if your total income or the number that's at the top there is 14, you're only getting 7. When you go to a limited war, which you can have over kind of like a period of 4 turns, it's kind of the ramp up or the build up to a full scale war. You get about 75% of that income. And then when you're at war, fully declared war against an enemy, then you'll get 100% of your income. But the thing is, we've built into this game so that you start suffering war fatigue over time, and that has an economic impact. So after 20 turns, your income falls to 75%. And then after another 20 turns, or between 20 and 30, it's 75. And then between 30 and 40, it's 50. And then 40 and 50, it's 40. And then over 50 turns, it becomes 30%. So you can see that there's an advantage to being at peace, quote unquote peace, while you're in the game. And then you have little spurts of war, if you want to call it that, periods of war, short windows where you kind of do what you need to do. So going down the list here, we've also got potentially some, for example, if you get another empire, or there are other sort of game events that would allow extra income to come your way, that's where you would see the transfers and adjustment piece here. You would see like extra money show up here and that kind of thing. And then at the end of all those calculations, it tells you what your current amount of money is. So for example, in this, what you're seeing here, if you have a deficit at the end of your turn, that kind of carries over, and you'll see what your current amount of money in house is, or in the bank account, when you start the turn. Then you've got the interest on that debt from the previous turn that's calculated here. Fleet cap, which we can get into a little bit later, but that's basically the total number of ships that your economy can support. So you're, based on how much money you're making, you can support a certain number of ships, and then anything over that, you have to pay a little overage fee. Then you have a category here for repairs. So if you have ships that are damaged and you need them to be repaired, there you go. And then we have our construction. So here you'll see that there's a spring and a fall cycle. And depending on what kind of slipways being the space dock kind of structure that builds ships. And if you're a Star Trek fan, you know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's the manufacturing facility in space that allows you to build ships. And we have different size slipways depending on the different kinds of ships. We have ones for frigate-sized vessels, one for destroyer-sized vessels, one for light cruisers, one for heavy cruisers. And then if you want to get to dreadnoughts, you can build a dreadnought slipway. So at the very beginning of the game, I have one slipway, and that is for, you'll see WCA here, W meaning the time period, so it's an early era slipway. and it's a CA, which is a cruiser. So it's a heavy cruiser slipway. Here you have a category for overbuilds, which is you have a certain amount that you can build any particular turn based on the slipways. If you build over that, if you want to build, for example, instead of one cruiser, I want to build two, basically it's worth twice the price. So I pay one at regular price and I build a second one for twice the price. It's basically you're paying for overtime for people to go in there and do their thing. And then we've got so conversions. So anything that, for example, if you have a base that you're upgrading or a ship that you're making minor modifications to, for example, there at a certain time you'll be able to upgrade ships from a cruiser to a command cruiser or different kind of specialties there. Those kinds of changes happen there, as well as the same kind of things you would do to bases. So taking a base from a let's call it a level 1 base to a level 2 base and so on. And I'll describe that a little bit later. And then we have a catch-all for other. There's also research and development here, which I'll get into a second. And then there's other expenses that usually occur during a combat phase, but we won't talk about that during this turn. So as we can see here, when we get to the bottom, in this particular column, you will see that in this turn, I spent basically $6 to build if you hover over, I've got it in a comment box, I built a large freighter, so YFEL, and I'll get to all the ships and so on in a second. That's basically a big honkin' freighter, exploration freighter in this case. And then so I've got that there, and then here I built what's called a prime team. Prime teams are like, we'll think of them like specialty teams that in this case help increase your chances to explore space. And so on. So this is basically the balance sheet. And so what we've done here, this is the very beginning. This is turn 1. I've planned out for the first 10 turns because you'll see in a second, it takes a while to kind of get things going, get the momentum. On this sheet, we also have a tab for movement. So we'll put down the different vessels or units that we have, where they're located and where they're going. This is called the MSIT. So basically, this is the list of all the things that we can build. So here, as we're going down here, at the era that we're in, we can build a Y or early era space dock. And so that's basically a robust space station that allows for repair. As we go across here, you can see that it has 8 attack and 16 defense, and this little diamond, which I'll talk about that a little bit later. You would upgrade it from a YBS, which is down below. And then there's a bunch of electronic warfare here. Big thing to note here, it can repair 8 points of damage, and it can convert ships up to 2 points and build ships itself up to 2 points. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So the YBS is the base station, so the early era base station. And here you can see it has a 4 attack and an 8 defense. Something here I should mention, the command rating. This is how many ships it can command. So if you have 10 ships, then 10 plus the YDK can be in any particular fight or battle. And so in this case for a YBS, it's 8 itself plus 8 other ships that it can command. And then you can see here how much salvage you would get from recovering it. Here you can see that to build a YBS, a convoy will take 10 points or $10 to be able to build it. And looking back up here, it would take 10 points to convert it from a YBS to a YDK. So basically level 1 to level 2 kind of thing. The YBS, or the early base station, can only repair 2 points of damage and has slightly less EW. And as we go down here, I'll just point out the ones that are important to see. So the YFEL, that's the exploration large freighter. And you can see that that costs $6. The small exploration freighter, the auxiliary exploration, costs $4. Here you have convoys. So you have an early era convoy, which allows you to build stuff, also carries cargo, and a commercial convoy, which is like trade, basically. You have an early era base or ground base defense. And then here we have diplomacy teams and a prime team. Again, the prime team can do specialty things. In this case, for example, can help with exploration. Then as we go down here, and as a reminder, I am playing the Klingons, hence the sort of Klingon theme for the channel. So the Klingons don't fit into the classic FF, DD, CA kind of designations, but I'll help break that down here for you. So you can see here that the Klingons have a battleship, or sorry, a dreadnought right off the top. So that's called their C3, and the number is usually associated with the kind of like the advancement in technology. So 3 being an early era dreadnought. So you can see that here. The D3, you might be familiar for a Trek fan with like the D7, the Katinga class and things like that. So the D3 is an early era D-series cruiser. And so you can see that here. Fs are like destroyers, basically. And so we've got 2 here. One is basically a penal ship, which is run by prisoners. And then the other one is a base destroyer. And the E1 is basically a frigate. And there's one here that is the T designation stands for a theater transport. So it's like a baby tug, and it can carry more cargo, which in this case is 2 EP. So that's basically the MSIT. We talk about R&D. So in this game, and I'll quickly go over here to the tech tree. Crazy to see, but let's zoom in a little bit, and I can show you some of the important things. So in this game, we have Y, M, and GW. These are the technology levels that will be accomplished as we move forward in the game. And you can see here in the prerequisites for the Y, which is the next sort of milestone for technology, you can see the Y slipways. You've got to have, in order to get Y technology, you have to get construction at the Y slipways. And as we go across here, it'll indicate all the other requirements or prerequisites that we need. So as we scroll across, we've got speed of 4 hexes, which means basically that Y ships can travel 4 hexes at a time. Tractor beam range 1 and transporters range 2. So if you scroll out a little bit, you can see here that, and it might be a little harder to see, but basically you've got to have the construction at Y slipways, you've got to have speed at 4, and you got to have tractors and transporters at 1 and 2 respectively. So those are the technologies you need. And as you go up to M and GW, you'll notice that there are other technologies that need to be gotten as well, like phasers for phaser 1s for M. If you think of like Captain Kirk and the Enterprise firing their phasers, that's the kind of thing. Woo! It goes too far. And then you can see here also for labs, you need to be able to hit no penalty to get to M as well. So just mindful to keep some of these things in mind. And then so when it comes to R&D, you'll go down the list here and indicate and put a 1 in every one of these columns that you want to put a point towards research and development for those things. And as a little cheat sheet here, you can see that the Ys and the Ms and the GWs indicate what are the prerequisites that you need to be able to get that level of technology. So those are the big milestones when it comes to the big tech upgrades, when it comes to your ships. But there are certainly many other things to consider. And we'll start off with the map. So here's the map. And can you still hear me? Yes. Okay. So, oh, I'm showing that you can't hear me. Can you hear me now? There we go. All right. So as you can see here on the map, you've got, this is the platform we're using is called Vassal. Vassal.org is where you can find this. And we have a special mod that we're using to be able to populate this map and use the units we're using. So quick little thing here. You'll see on the top, you've got Fed, Klingon, Romulan, Riemann, all these other races basically that are up here. And so when we go to Klingons, we'll just take a quick look at the capital system. So that's this hex that's right here with the little star. So that is my capital hex. And in that capital hex, I have my home planet, which has a YBS there with a ground base to protect it. I have a ground base on this minor planet here. And then I have a small colony also in that same system. And that's all within the capital hex. And when it comes to this game, every player will have a capital hex with a combination of their major home planet and then the others, the other other categories here when it comes to minor and colonies, or maybe they have 2 minor planets, whatever the case may be. But they'll have some combination of these 3 being minor colonies, something along those lines. And I start off with a small exploration freighter. And so the objective here is to be able to start moving out and exploring all of these hexes. So let me share with you now. This is, as you saw, I planned out to turn 10. And so this is up to turn 5. And at turn 5, you'll see that I've produced a number of large exploration freighters with these, they call them, in the Klingon vernacular, they're called dagger teams, but that's the prime team basically. And then I've got 3 of these small exploration freighters. So at the time when this occurred, I had put a little contingency in the instructions that I sent the game master who's processing all this for us to stop if there was an unexpected event. And so this little white thing here in the middle is the unexpected event. Basically a large freighter showed up. And what this turned out to be was a colony ship. So a long sort of dead colony ship. If you want to think of the original Star Trek series, Space Seed with Khan is a very good example of this. So you had this ship with these people sort of hibernated in the ship, and I discovered this colony ship. So I've taken this colony ship back to my homeworld, and it's kind of quote unquote on ice while I'm sort of researching it and so on. So that's what's going on with this. But this was turn number 5, so I submitted for turn number 5, and then this happened. So there was an incident. This is turn 7. So there was an incident where a quote-unquote monster showed up and attacked this D3E. So the E is for exploration. This is a cruiser, a survey cruiser designed for exploration. From a game perspective, it has the same chances to explore as the large freighters, but it can move faster. And as you can see here, when you look at the large freighter, see how it has a 0, tack, or a little dash, and then a 4? So the 0 is the attack factor. The 4 is the defense factor, meaning how much damage it can take. And it can only take... it has no attack, so no offensive weapons, but it can take up to 4 damage. You will see that the D3 has 2 attack, meaning it has offensive weapons, and it can take 5 damage. So it's a slightly more robust option than the defenseless freighter here. So that was built, and it had an encounter with a monster that crippled it. It had to go back and then repair and then come back out here. So that's what's going on now. So as you can see, I've explored a couple hexes out, and let me show you this. Oh, there we go. Boom. So it's a little harder to see because it's basically a light gray on gray map, which is funny. But this is the supply radius or the logistical range that I can go to. And that is another technology that's on the technology tree, supply. And as you develop more supply, you can get to supply 3, 4, 5, and 6. And obviously at the moment, it's only at 2 because we're at the very beginning of the game. So 2 hex means that I can explore all these hexes that are highlighted. So the black ones, obviously I've already explored those. And then these gray ones are ones that have not been explored yet. So as you can see, I've got about 8 more hexes that I can explore with these ships. And then I have to start building out my logistical supply. There are a couple of things that allow you to be able to stretch things out. One is a base. So the YBS, or the base station, that you saw, for example, right here, this YBS, that allows you to expand, boom, boom. It's a supply node, allows you to expand that 2 more hexes. So for example, if I, in this example, built a base station in Papa 12 here, PP12. If I built a base station there, it would extend my range to PP10 and so on and so forth. So you can build there out to Romeo 13 here, Romeo 15, Papa 16, and so on and so forth. So you can build it out to sort of the corners of the hexagon shape here. So, you know, I call them the cardinal points, even though in a true compass it's north, south, east, west. But in this case, for a hex, it's north, basically northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, and south. That's basically how that works. And so those are kind of the cardinal points when it comes to the hex, and it allows you for the best possible reach going out. So that's the map, and that's what that looks like. So let's get rid of that little highlight there, and boom. All right. So that's kind of the basic. Let me take a sip here. That's the basic layout of the game so far, only as far as turn 7. And you would ask, oh, but Tony, how far does this game go? In the last game that we played, we got to turn, what was it? 100 and, let me see. I can look it up real quick. Actually, hold on. Final 119. So we got to turn 119 in the game, in the last game that we played. This, incidentally, is the fourth one. This is the fourth version of this game that we've played, and we make slight changes all the time. So this is the fourth version of this game that we've played, and every time we're playing different races and species. And if you want to think of the classic Star Trek, you've got, of course, the Federation. You've with the Lollipop and Constitution class and all these different kinds of saucer style ships. You've got the Klingons, which I'm playing in this game. You've got the Romulans, which is the classic, sort of the classic original series style Romulans. You've got as well a bunch of races that are, again, in the Starfleet universe. Starfleet universe being the original series and the part of Star Trek that's set in that time frame and in that sort of, we'll call it timeline. So you've got races like the Gorn. So if you think of the original series, there was that lizard man that Shatner was fighting in one of the episodes. That is the Gorn. The Gorn are like the Romulans. They're very similar to the Romulans in the way their ships are, but they're a little bit more expensive to build, but they are far more robust. They pack a lot more punch than other ships of a similar size and class. There's also on that same, what they call them, the plasma races. They use plasma as their weapon system. So plasma torpedoes. So Gorn, Romulan, and the ISC, the Interstellar Concordium. They were never anything that showed up that I'm aware of in the original series, but they're in the game. And so they are another tough customer, kind of big, robust ships. And they're in the same vein as the Romulans and the Gorn. Then there's the Klingons, and on the Klingon side, you've got two races that are like cats, for lack of a better way to describe it. You've got the Kzinti, which are basically like tigers, if you want to think of it that, tiger people. And their big thing is they use missiles. In this game, they call them drones, but basically missiles. And so they have a number of special technologies, like the Romulans have cloaking and plasmas, and the Gorn are also plasmas, and they have some other kind of perks as well. The Kzinti have a thing about drones, so they have this technology that they can develop when it comes to missiles, and that's their thing. Then you've got the Lyrans, which are basically lion people instead of tiger people, and they have a weapon system that doesn't really kind of make too much sense in the strategic level of this game, but on the tactical level, when you play ship-to-ship battles, you can play that in this game system with something called Starfleet battles, and they have a special kind of weapon system that works out there. But on this kind of strategic level game, Their big thing is that they can take certain kinds of ships and they basically weld them together to make a bigger ship. So it allows them to be able to take, a couple frigates and make a cruiser, a couple cruisers and make a dreadnought and that kind of thing. And it allows them to be able to make and convert ships more easily. One of the things about this game is it's less about the actual fighting, although that's important, but it's about how you set yourself up for the fight. What are your economics, logistics, and the different things that you kind of prepare in advance before the actual shooting starts. And so in that case, for example, things like attrition are really important, your ability to repair damaged ships, and with the case of the Lyrans, you'll be able to upgrade or basically convert lower end ships to maybe more potent or bigger firepower ships, and that can be of an advantage. So there's the Kzinti and the Lyrans, and then the Klingons, and all those races have access to drones or missiles. And then you've also got the Hydrans, and the Hydrans are basically squid people, and that's not really important other than their big thing is fighters. They're they are the team on the board that uses aircraft carriers like it's going out of style. Every ship in the modern era for them has fighters, and fighters are great because as a tool they cost money, but they allow you to be able to increase the attack factors or the potency of your ships, and when you take damage you can just basically burn fighters without actually damaging your ship, your main ship. And that allows you an ability to avoid having to repair ships all the time and instead just repopulate fighters, which are a lot cheaper to do. So again, from an economic standpoint, that really works out well. So again, tiger people, the Kzinti, lion people, the Lyrans, the squid people, the Hydrans, and then the Klingons. Those are those folks on one side of the map on the traditional board. Then you got the Feds in the middle, and then on the other side, the Gorn, the ISC, and the Romulans. There's also, in this game, there's also the Tholians, which if you've ever seen any of there's the original series, the Tholian Web episode, and then there's a number of episodes maybe in Enterprise where they deal with the Tholians. The Tholians are kind of like a mystery race that whereas all the other species in Star Trek are basically, humans, for lack of a better way to describe it, with different kind of makeup. The Tholians are literally made out of crystals. They are just a totally different species, and their ships are very different, and they're less potent attack factors, really good defense, and they have these technologies that they can research that allow them to make really good, or we'll call them hard targets to hit, really good on the defense. And then also in this game, there's going to be some other races that I'm not too familiar with. If you're a big Federation and Empire player, you might be familiar with some of them. But they are races that are only available sort of in the early era, and they're kind of expansion, we'll call it expansion pack options that you can pick. So that's what they are. And so they are, some of those are going to be played in the game. And I will leave you in anticipation as to what those are, because I'll be interested to see who we encounter in the map. So if we take a second and look at the map for a sec. So here we look at the map, and you can see, as I point this way, you can see that we don't have any contact with anybody as of right now. In this particular map, everything is still fog of war. All the gray hexes are fog of war. Once we encounter another species or another player, we'll probably first encounter their ships, so at range, and something will happen very similar to this white box that you see, as I should look this way. The white box that you see on the chart there, that will sort of be an unidentified ship, and it will indicate maybe what its size is, small, medium, or large, meaning frigate, destroyer, cruiser, or maybe bigger. And once we put a ship counter in that same hex, then we find out what it is. And so that'll be when we discover the ships. But when we have what they call supply to each other. So for example, if my, in this case, 2 hex supply, if my 2 hex supply reaches another base or supply node from the other player, for example, a base like a YBS. So if my YBS can connect to their YBS with supply, then all of a sudden the map opens up and what I can see and what they can see gets mixed. So they can see everything I can see and I can see everything that they can see. And the advantage of that is that then, of course, we have total visibility of what each other can see. But it's also perhaps not so great because if you're trying to hide everything that you have or prevent the other player from seeing where you are, then it's a great way to be able to kind of, you know, in a sort of Wizard of Oz metaphor, stay behind the curtain. You pull the curtain and make sure that they never get supply to your bases. First of all, hopefully they don't know where they are, if that's the case. But you can prevent them from gaining supply to you in a way so that you can always know where they are, but they don't know where you are, hopefully. Maybe that could be that you know where one of their base stations is, and you're trying to pop it or blow it up. And maybe you're trying to outmaneuver them and you don't want them to see that you're doing that, or whatever the case may be. Like I say, this is the 4th time that we've played this game over 4 years, because these games take as long as a year to play, which is insane. But there have been versions of this, or different versions of the game that we've played, where that kind of stuff has happened. We've had folks encounter each other, and you have this kind of maneuvering that's happening to make sure that they don't discover each other or get supply to each other. Once they do, then they can see each other's maps and things like that, and all the kind of strange things that occur to make or not make that happen. So, yeah, very, very interesting. But that's where we're at as far as right now. It's the very, very, very early stages of the game. And let me pull up turn 7, so to speak, here. So here. So let me show you what I've got in turn 7 and kind of my thought process on how we are processing this turn. So, oh, hold on. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. Now you can hear me. So here you can see we've got, so this is turn 7. So we're in this column right here. So in the last turn, there was some repairs that had to occur to that D3 Echo because the ship had gotten damaged in an encounter with a monster. And so now, here we're at. So we were at slightly negative. Oh, transfers and adjustments. Let's see what that says. So apparently I captured a gem encrusted meteor. So I got some money from that. And I discovered a hidden cache of stolen goods. So that got me some extra money there. So a little extra money in my coffers. That's great. Helps me build stuff. So originally when I was planning out my 10-turn build, or 10 turns out, I planned to start building these slipways because, as you can see here, and there was a change to the spreadsheet from the WCA that you saw in first turn to D3. So what he's putting here by saying D3, this is the game master who made that change. D is the cruisers for the Klingons, and 3 is kind of the era. So 3 is the W or early era. D4 will be the Y era. I'm not sure if we're going to go to D5 or D6 for M. I want to say there's definitely a D6 in M, but I think there's also a D7 that shows up a little later in M. Because if you remember from the original series, the D7 is basically the ship that takes on the Constitution class. So, so here we are. So I built a slipway in this turn, and I can build a ship the same turn I built a slipway. So I was deciding to build a slipway and then build one of these ships. And based on this, I'm already at a little bit negative. So that's fine. I'm happy with that. And then if we go into the next turn, so if I look at the map and where are we here? Whoop. There we go. Just want to make sure you're still hearing me. Okay, good. So as you can see in the map here, we've got, there we go, wrong map. There we go. So as you can see here, there is a, you can see that? Yeah, there you go. So you can see there's the D3 Echo, which has got the Dagger team. This hex has one of the small freighters and one of the big freighters. I lost a small freighter in an encounter with, I can't remember what it was, but basically I lost it in a fight because it didn't have any escorts. Like it didn't have a ship that could fight back. And then I've got the big freighter there. So what am I going to do here? What am I going to build? And one of the things that's important that I need to start thinking about when we go back to the supply menu is I need to start building out my supply, right? So I'm thinking here it would be important to build out an ability to build out a base here and here, as those are the two sort of cardinal points that have and this one, of course, here, I got that explored. So maybe here or here as cardinal points that would allow me to explore the most in those two directions. So if we go back to the there we go. So if we go back to this this here, remember that it costs $10 to build a base. And so maybe in this turn here, I'm going to also build a convoy. Now let's go find out how much a convoy costs to build. So as we see here, as time goes on, these red bars are the things that I can't build yet. So for example, in the large auxiliary choices here, I've got a troop transport ship, which became available in year 68. I've got a large exploration freighter, which even though it says year 70 here, they're available to everybody at the start of the game. And then at year 70, I'll also get the armed auxiliary, which is just has a small attack factor on it. And so you can see there, the ones in white are the ones I can build now, and the ones in red are the ones I cannot build yet. So as we go down here, the Y convoy, that's the thing that can build bases. It costs $4 to build. So let's go back to our spreadsheet here, and I will add that in. Whoa, obviously my cap locks are on. Y convoy, 4 EP, 4 EP. There you go. Economic points is what we refer to as EP. That's our money in this game. So Y convoy 4, the E1 is basically a frigate, and it's 1.5, so this makes this 5.5. Bam. Oh, incidentally, I apologize if anyone is chatting at me, which no one is, it would seem. Because I haven't been watching the chat. There we go. All right, let's minimize that. Boom. All right, so here we go. We got 5.5 plus the 10 puts me at negative 6.7. Now, if I ever have a bigger debt than I can actually make for money, that's going to be an issue. So 6.7 is below 7, which is what I will start at next turn, which is perfect. So that's great. So I'll build a convoy, and that'll be fine. And then it'll take two turns to get up to where it needs to be. So that's fine. What I'll do here is I will move this. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Never mind. Okay. So I'm going to build that convoy. Let's see. Yeah, so bam. So in turn 7, I'm going to build a Y convoy. Whoops. Convoy. It's going to start in my home hex, which is Papa 14, so PP14. And then I will move it. It can only move 1 hex at a time because it's a slow moving thing. All of these except for the D3 are slow moving. So I will move that. Where are you here? I will move that up to, that's not the one I want. There we go. I'll move that up to Papa 12, and then I'll maybe build another one and send it down to Papa 16. So let's map this out for the next couple turns. So we'll build that one there. And then let's put a comment in here. Whoop, not a comment, a note rather. There we go, new note. And this will be another Y convoy for EP. Boom. 4. Ba-bam. So interesting, because if I build the convoy, that's not going to allow me to build when I want to build when I want to build it. So I will have to do that. Here's hoping I discover something. Okay. Trying to manage this as best I can. So I can't build 2 of those guys yet because I will only have 1 slipway. Start the treasury with 2.65. Okay, so instead of doing that, what I'll do is instead I will build a D3. Yep. Edit note. I'll build a D3 at 5 EP. Boom. There you go. So I'll build one of those, and then I'll build the slipway here. And we'll extend it to turn 15 since we're so close here. Paste. I'll be at peace for that majority of that time. And there we go. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, by the way, you can only have a total of 3 frigate slipways and 3 destroyer slipways. So I'm going to build out the 3 of those frigate slipways here, here, and here. That will help me out in that regard. What's the D3N? The D3N is a diplomatic cruiser. So the diplomatic cruiser is an interesting, unique unit that the Klingons have. And what it does is it allows you to have the benefits of a cruiser with a diplomat. It gives you some extra benefits when you're dealing with other planets or other NPCs and trying to get them on your side. So it might be worthwhile to build that at some point. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to build a prime team to go with that cruiser, because I send prime teams help with exploration. And so if I add a prime team in with this cruiser, it makes it pretty good for exploration. And unfortunately, that will cause some challenges with my... Oh, that's right. Okay, so one of the things here, we're building the convoy. So it'll take 2 turns to get to where it needs to go. 1, 2. So once it gets here, it'll build and move and then move it again. So it'll be in location here. So where do I want it to build? One thing that's changed... Oh, no, it is a 2-step process. Okay. One of the things that's changed in this particular game versus previous games is before it used to take 2 turns every time to build or do like upgrades to bases. And that's changed a little bit in this game, although I'm not exactly sure how we've changed it at this point. I think it depends on certain technologies that you've discovered. You can speed that process up. So I think what I'll do here is I will build, I will build a YBS in, I'll go Papa 16. Papa 16 YBS construction completion date. So it takes 2 turns to build. So if it builds it here, 1, 2, it'll be completed in 71 spring. And there's no reason for all of that to be in bold. There we go. All right. Okay, well, here's hoping I discover something by then. Because if I go into this turn in negative, then I'm sort of SOL. Maybe I'll do it this way. I will... Okay. And then he'll build in that turn. And then in this turn, spring, fall. I'll build for... Yeah. For the Y convoy. So I'll build the convoy there. Okay. Boom, boom. He'll take 2 turns. He'll be done by 71 spring. Boom. He'll be built. He'll go there. Build and move, build and move, move. He'll be able to build there. So, brutal. Okay. So in this case, I will build YBS in what hex? I'll go top of the map into Papa 12. Papa 16, Papa 12. Boom, boom. So it's being built in 72 spring, which means it'll be 73 spring when it's done. Okay. So I'm just mapping this out in my head. This one's built. It'll start building here. It'll take 2 turns to construct. It'll be done this turn. It'll take 2 turns to move. 1, 2. The other one will be building in that turn. 1, 2. We'll say this one will build in November 15. It'll build in the next available hex. And 2 hex from Papa 16. So YBS construction in the next available hex, 2 hex from Homeworld and 2 hex from Papa 16. Right. So that basically makes it here or here. Just depends on which one gets explored first. And since that's what the map looks like right now, there's a really good chance it'll be this one, maybe this one. We'll see. All right. So let's, that looks like a pretty decent, okay. Let's see if we can drew 1.5. Oh, okay. Have a slipway there. So we'll have 2 slipways by then. Aha. Okay. 2 times E1. Oh, let's see here. What can we build? We've got F3s and E1s. I think I'm going to stick with E1s. Paste. Okay. So as of right now, this is what it looks like. Turn 7 is the turn we're submitting on this particular spreadsheet. So we're going to build an E1, which is a frigate, plus a convoy. And then they're going to go build a YBS and Papa 16. After they go start to build that, build another convoy, which will make its way over to, Papa 12 to build another YBS. Again, this is all about extending my supply range. And then in between that, we'll build another slipway, continue to start building out some more frigates, and then build another YBS or base station in something like 2 hexes from the homeworld and 2 hexes from where the first base station is going to be built. So that looks like a pretty good deal for right now. Boom, 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 boom. So everybody, that has been sort of the, what are we doing for time here? Oh, interesting. It doesn't record. It's not showing my streaming time. Interesting. So yeah, that's been the turn so far, what I'm seeing, and you've seen the map. So as a recap, again, showed you the basic economics of what happened in this episode, or sorry, what happens in this game. So you saw the spreadsheet, you saw kind of how it looks, and I know it looks confusing right now, but it'll look more easier to understand as we kind of go through the game. And if you are interested in playing this game with us, then please join us on the Patreon. So you would think I would have that right up here. So on Patreon, we're under the Lost Stars. So if you look for Lost Stars under Patreon, and I'll just there's got to be a way to grab this quickly. Let's see here. No, I want the actual page. There we go. So patreon.com/loststars. That's patreon.com/loststars. That is the Patreon page. And in there, we've got some options for you if you want to follow along in this campaign. Not only can you follow along, but you can help support us in the sense of building out sort of the kind of capabilities we have to be able to support providing content for you. Some of the perks we have there include, for example, depending on the level, you can have a ship named after you in the fleet. So as we're going through the turns here and building out more cruisers and frigates and various things, you'll have your ship named. For example, if your name is Jason, your name would be Jason on the ship, or whatever you want to call it. At a higher level, you can also take control of a small task group. So as many as 3 ships. You will have 1 command ship and 2 support ships, and you can move those ships as you want, or we can discuss where you want to move those ships on the map and move them around. And then if you really want to get into it, as we build out the campaign here, you can not only have a task group, you could have a fleet, and you could even be a governor of a province if you want, controlling the economic aspects of that particular province. So we're obviously quite far away from getting to some of those levels, I'm sure. But if you're interested in supporting this and seeing other opportunities here, let me just show you the page. There we go. Now you can hear me. So here you can see that you've got the Lost Stars page, and I've just posted, for example, here, that was the first video we put out, the little history about the Klingon Empire in this campaign. And here you can see the different, you'll be able to subscribe, or not subscribe, support us to be able to see what membership tier that you want to. Here you can see here. So for example, Warriors are first tier, and you get early access to videos like this. If you want to be 1 tier up from that, you get a warship named after you, and you can follow it throughout the game, or you can be a commander, and by that you can control a group of up to 3 ships. You can be a fleet commander and control a fleet of up to 10 ships, or like I say, a governor and control the province and the economic development of that as well. So yeah, that's all the kind of neat stuff you can get if you want to join. And of course, the more we build out support for this, the more kind of bells and whistles and fancy things we can do as a community. Early stages, this is the first live stream, so no crazy expectations here. Just for you to be able to follow on and just enjoy kind of the story we're telling. And as we go along further here, there'll be more sort of role-playing aspects that come into play. Depending on the players that we encounter, there'll be more or less. role-playing / more or less straight-on fighting. It depends on who we encounter. The players that do play this game, some of them are very experienced, some of them are not. Some of them are heavy into the role-playing aspects, some are not. And if you want to participate in this game, if you want to be able to play in this game, while this campaign has certainly started, you can participate in the ways that we've mentioned in the Patreon. And if that isn't, if you want to get more involved than that, then certainly when the next game starts, you will be, by supporting us and being part of this community, you'll be in a great spot to be able to jump into the next campaign if that's what you want to do. But with that said, that's pretty much all for me here today. Thank you very much for joining us on Lost Stars, and I look forward to seeing you again. I'll be publishing a schedule that I'll keep to, but in the coming weeks or over the next couple weeks. But as it is right now, I'll be looking to live stream again when I get the next turn in, probably tomorrow, and throughout this Easter weekend. So I'll see you at some point again throughout the Easter weekend. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and ciao for now.